Welcome, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Hello, Corley, Max, P, Natalie, Deborah, seeing everyone's names coming in the chat and in the agenda. It's lovely to see everyone. If you are here for the first time, this is the Public Newsroom. The Public Newsroom is City Bureau's free monthly gathering where we discuss and deconstruct local issues and also highlight ways of building people power. If you have not heard of us before, City Bureau is a nonprofit news organization based on the south side of Chicago. And my name is Ellie Mejia. I am City Bureau's community resource organizer, and I put on this workshop series. Today's newsroom is inspired by our How a Community Heals series, where we profile different Chicagoans who are centering healing, community care, and mutual aid in their work. They range from acupuncturists to astrologers to organizers to artists and much, much more. We started up this series last year in response to the pandemic, historic uprisings, and economic downturn that we're going through. But the truth is that a lot of this healing work is addressing systemic issues from long before 2020. And today we are lucky to be joined by three of the people that we wrote about as part of that series, including Jennifer Pagan, co-founder of the Let Us Breathe Collective, an alliance of abolitionist artists and activists. She also organizes with the Black Abolitionist Network and the Defund CPD campaign. Dorian Sylvain, an artist who started Mural Moves Chicago, a public art campaign that trains young artists, galvanizes communities, and fosters an intergenerational understanding of well-being through art. Last year, Mural Moves painted over boarded up windows in Black and brown neighborhoods across the South and West Sides. And we're also joined by Manu, who is an artist, musician, and the co-founder of Casa Al-Fatiha, a sanctuary home for queer asylum seekers after they have been released from detention. Our moderator tonight is Isaiah Thought Poet Vini, who is also an organizer, creative, and alumnus of City Bureau's fellowship program. His work has been featured in publications like the Southside Weekly, the Chicago Reader, Essence, and more. So thank you all. Thanks to our guests for joining us. I'm super excited to have you all in conversation later on. We'll be asking our panelists about the role of healing and their work toward liberation. And after that, we'll do a little reflection exercise so everyone in attendance can contemplate how healing and community care can figure into our lives.
Cool. Hey, everyone. So I don't know if this is even appropriate to say, but I just wanted to say thank you to Sarah, who has been having me work on this series. So working with Natalie, working with Corley, like I've been able to, you know what I'm saying, kind of just get a sense of, like, I don't know if folks have read the articles in depth, but like this series is really needed in my opinion, just because this is like an era that we've been in before as far as like organizing and like kind of like how the community interacts and, you know, just, I guess, just moves in general, right? And I know personally myself 5 years ago, a lot of the things that like exist as far as like even trying to heal did not exist 5 years ago. And so, yeah, I'm just really glad that Sarah put me into this. And yeah, I'll definitely, should I like get into the questions or? Okay, where, cool. So I'm going to hop into the first question and I guess just, you know, for the folks on the panel, please just, you know, give it your best thoughts. But the first question is, what does healing mean to you? And the second part of that question is, how do healing and community care show up in your work? So again, the first question is, what does healing mean to you? And the second is, how does healing and community care show up in your work? And I'm trying to see the first person. Yeah, Jennifer, she just popped up, so I'll have her go first.
Hey everyone, peace y'all. Grateful to be here. Grateful that I was asked to be a part of this space. So glad to be in community with folks like Dorian and Manu, very grateful. Yeah, so healing to me, I think in this past year and a half, I have really solidified just what it means just through my personal experiences with healing. And so for me, I just see it as a very ongoing, active process of becoming whole. So, a process of like mending and building, and a process that is really rooted in self-determination, a process rooted in repair, restoration, connection, power, resilience. And so, in our work, in a lot of the work that I do, I don't think healing can be disentangled from like political struggle, right? It's a critical and necessary part of, movement building work for real. And kind of like Chris is pointing to, or Thought Poet is pointing to, because we have not healed, we've been kind of running into the same cycles of harm, the same cycles of abuse, that are kind of, putting our movement at odds and really creating, spaces of division that are unnecessary. And so I think for me, if we're calling ourselves abolitionists, if we're, it means that we must make a commitment to healing. And that's like, period. We must make a commitment to show up as who we imagine to be right now in our relationships, in our families, in the spaces that we are activating. It's not just about, being on the mic at the protest. It's not just about being on stage. It's about what you do with the people you're working with and building with in community, and how you really connect to and relate to people on like a daily basis. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing with Let Us Breathe and just with Defund and with BAN has really been about making healing a central part of organizing praxis and movement building work, because if people are showing up to movement space not fully healed, that'll come out when people are triggered, when people are angry. And I think last summer was a perfect example of that, right? Like, with the intersection of pandemic and like global uprising, there was a lot going on. And as soon as like shit hit the fan, shit really hit the fan. And it was clear that people weren't engaged in the active process of healing. People weren't speaking and communicating to each other in the ways that they needed to. People weren't relating to each other with love or with compassion. And so I think for me, what the work that I do with Let Us Breathe and the work that we do with BAN and with Defund is really just about operating in that legacy and tradition of healing justice, and really using and embedding healing in all the politics, right? And really deploying it as a response to colonialism, as a response to white supremacy, as a response to capitalism. And so our programming and our work is really centered in making accessible pathways to healing for Black and Indigenous folks. And so, that could be as simple as offering Reiki, right, at like a breathing room series, offering acupuncture, offering massage. But it's also really about, building partnerships and building relationships and training people to better take care of each other and themselves. And so, I feel like a lot of the lessons we learned this summer was really rooted in the fact that we need to stop and like heal and just like recognize like, hey, we need to take a breath, and we need to be moving at the speed of trust and not kind of at the speed of like crisis and urgency. And healing, I feel like a lot of the time supports us in that slowing down, in that kind of relating to each other with love and with grace and with compassion and with understanding, instead of with like anger and resentment or like a harshness. And so, yeah, slow and small versus responding to crisis. And so I think for me, like when we're active in a process of healing, we are almost conditioned to respond that way, right? It's almost inherent that we respond that way. Yeah, that's all I got for right now.
I think everybody will agree with me in saying that those are like some deep bars, for sure. I know, speaking for myself as like an organizer working with Jennifer, I know like just trying to figure out that pausing moment is difficult. So yes, thank you for that. Dorian, I'm gonna pass the torch to you. And it's the same question. What does healing mean to you?
Okay, well, I gotta give big applause to Jennifer on that, because I mean, you just like said it. Like, we could just like wrap up the evening now, I mean, preaching for sure, for sure. Man, well, healing, I think at its core to me is part of the ongoing desire to be balanced. And I think that one of the ways that I have even had to employ that over the decades of my life is the idea that we often, as individuals, let alone as community, have to recalibrate in our lives. New things are happening. Got 3 babies now. I got, I got a car note now. I've got and so I think that that idea of recalibrating, like, well, this is just where I'm at, and this is the imbalance that I'm feeling, and how do I approach creating some balance so I can get back to here. That of course is a very simplistic way of kind of describing and thinking about it. But one of the things that Jennifer brought up so eloquently in what she was saying is that part of the problem with what is going on with community, is that by design, poverty is meant to be painful. By design, it's meant to be uncomfortable. And by design, we're meant to constantly be in balance, so we can't figure out which way is up. And so there's so many levels of healing, of strategy, of how to, move forward when you're feeling imbalanced, when you do have a wound, how do we do that? And we as a community, because we're so rooted in very base struggles like eating, like housing, it's hard for us sometimes to get to some of those emotional, psychological traumas that we're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And one of the other ways that I see it manifested is in community blight. And again, gotta say, it's by design. It's not by accident that these neighborhoods, there's been long-term disinvestment. Businesses have left. Apartment buildings are closing. Homes are being foreclosed on. And then you expect people to, well, maybe you don't expect people. I'm sorry. Let me back that up. You understand that people are going to wither in those kind of environments, but yet you continue to create them. So as a muralist, as an artist, one of the things, and even just as a woman, one of the things that I have found useful in my years is color. It is, as a muralist at its most base level, I'm bringing color to a wall. I'm bringing color to an environment. And then to kick it up, I might throw some pattern, kick it up. I might throw some historical figures, kick it up. I might, have some inspirational quotes, So murals for me are, is the way that I like to communicate with community, with neighborhood. And just even as a quick example, I remember a year ago when I think it was March 14th, when we got the word that CPS is closed. And once CPS closed, we knew it was serious. And so my teaching practice, one of the organizations I work with often is a Hyde Park Arts Center, one of my creative homes. And I was heading in that Friday to teach my class. And we got the word that everything was shutting down and we were leaving. And my 3 boys work with me. They're also muralists, also artists. And we were sitting home thinking, oh my God, this is so crazy. At the time, they just asked us to stay home for 2 weeks. So crazy. What can we do? What can we do? We just were just stunned like everybody. Realizing that there was a white wall on the Hyde Park Arts Center because they were in between artists and they were getting ready to have another muralist come and work. I called them up and said, hey, can we paint on that wall? And they said, fine, go for it. Because at the moment, they were closed indefinitely. They didn't know when they were going to open up again. So my boys and I came up with this concept of originally our motivation was, oh my God, I can't believe we can't hug people anymore. So the original theme was this idea of I miss hugs. But then from there, we started thinking about messaging as a public art piece. What messaging do we want to share with our neighbors? And we ended up working around the theme of stay home, make art. And so it was just an opportunity to say something. It was playful. It was colorful. My middle son, Kyrie Blackburn, did these cute little figures that were kind of childlike and playful. And so for me, public art is about using all of this space we have out that we share in common to say hello, to say you're great, to say it's going to be okay, to say that orange is a beautiful color that makes me feel wonderful. So to me, that's, kind of what the process is. And those are just small ways, but again, they're ways that help us move forward. They're ways it doesn't solve all your problems, but to be around color, to be around imagery, to be around beautiful things, whatever that means to you, that is a healing activity.
Whew, man. I think the part where you were just talking about just like oppression in communities, just because I live in West Inglewood, and so I mean, for anyone that knows about West Inglewood, super duper food desert, even with a Whole Foods that's on 63rd and Houston. So like, and I mean, like, I don't know if y'all follow the murals that Dorian's created, but they're just incredible. Like for real. So thank you for that. So Ma, I want to hit you with the next question. How does healing and community show up in your work?
Hi, everyone. Manu here, they, them pronouns. And in my work, well, specifically with Casa Al-Fatiha, it shows up by essentially creating adaptable space, because kind of going back to the first question, what I've found out here, and I guess I'll back up. Casa Al-Fatiha is an autonomous sanctuary house for LGBTQ plus asylum seekers, refugees, and then folks being released from detention, whether it's ICE detention or prison or whatever. And so what I've learned here in the past 3 months or so of us starting up is that healing is a process, but it looks different. People are healing from different harms, and what might be healing for one person might not necessarily, might feel good for another person, but might not necessarily be healing, And so basically how it shows up with Casa Al-Fatiha is creating open space, which is what Al-Fatiha in Arabic, it's the first chapter or surah in the Quran, and it's basically like an opening, or and so it's just creating open, flexible space so that people can come in and feel the agency to be able to adapt it to how best they'll be able to heal in the space. So that's short and sweet for Casa Al-Fatiha. I also do a lot of other work around healing through sensuality. I'm part of a collective called House of Wheat Lakuch, and we essentially, a lot of people might call it erotic art, or it's it involves eroticness, it involves sexuality, but also not sexuality, just sensuality, I like to say more, and healing through this whatever senses you want to. So again, it ties with art as well, healing with color, healing with scent, with music, but that's just a little bit of, I guess, how healing is involved in my work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and I think that leads me to the next question. And Jennifer, I think I want you to take a stab at this, if you don't mind. Why is it important or useful to center healing in a city? Yeah, I just would love to hear. Yeah, let's just go.
Thanks. Yeah, I think particularly in a city like Chicago, one of the most segregated cities in our country, we've experienced centuries of enslavement, of captivity, of colonialism, and going to Jim Crow and mass incarceration. So there's just generations of trauma that is literally living within our bodies and within our DNA. And so I think in order to move past that, or try to release that pain, or try to transform or integrate that pain and that trauma, it's really important that we forefront healing and really fully reckon with and grieve all that we have experienced, and some of what we have not experienced that we just inherently carry within our bones. And so, it's important that we reckon with that, not only to like recognize trauma and its like impact and recognize pain and its impact, but also to recognize like there are gifts that come with like generational healing, right? There are things that we uncover and discover when we are engaged in the active process and practice of healing. And, I think for a city like Chicago that is so rooted in like movement, that is so rooted in organizing in such a central space for all of that work, I think healing is, really what supports us in imagining new ways of taking care of ourselves. It supports us in imagining new ways to take care of each other, most importantly. And it supports us in building capacity. So, it's critical that we're engaging in healing work so that we're not going through like cycles of burnout or cycles of people just having to remove themselves from movement space simply because of just, the triggering kind of nature sometimes of just being present with other people and bonding through like that trauma and that pain. And so, outside of just like supporting us in building capacity, it also supports us in building a shared understanding and like a common language around like love and like compassion. And also outside of that too, I think, healing is a very active process of memory building. And so when we are engaging in that process communally as like Black and Indigenous people, we are engaging in the process of preserving and sustaining our culture, preserving and sustaining our traditions, preserving and sustaining and tapping into ancestral wisdom. And so in a city like Chicago, where there are Black and Indigenous folks, who are organizing together every day, if we are all actively engaged in a process of healing, right? If we are making and creating containers and spaces for those who we claim to serve to also activate and engage in that process of healing, then we become way more powerful as a collective, as a movement, because we are grounded in our relationships, we are grounded in trust, we are grounded in love, and we are grounded in a balanced understanding of world and like of nature. And so it's critical. It's not even important or useful. It is necessary at this point.
Damn. Shit. Manu, I want you to answer the same question, but I wanted to ask Jennifer that because I know I've been organizing with Jennifer for shit. Jennifer, how long have I been organizing with you?
Probably since like 2015, 2016.
Damn. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? I've seen like the evolution of like Jennifer as like an organizer. And so if you've ever known her, like her steez is like always been healing. It's like you just I don't know. I just really wanted to like point that out like that. And then again, with everything like she's gone through as an organizer in the past year, as well as myself, I know like healing in creating that space is important as hell. So Manu, like with the space that you've been creating, I want to ask you that same exact question.
Yeah, well, I think I don't want to waste time echoing anything Jennifer just said so brilliantly, but I think it's sadly it's needed because people in the city experience so much harm, plain and simple, and I think it's both beautiful, to see community come together to heal collectively, but then it's also always a reminder, the system won't help us and isn't designed to help us. And unfortunately, while we're also struggling just to exist, just to pay the bills, just to pay our medication, whatever, we have to struggle to exist, but then also struggle to heal so that we can struggle to continue, fighting towards liberation. So it's like this very, lack of a better phrase, but this very, very bittersweet dynamic within me when I think about healing and collective healing. And
Thank you so much for that. I think that leads perfectly into the next question that I want to aim at Dorian, because I know, like you were saying before, that you were kind of forced to figure out with your children, how to kind of be resourceful at the crib. And knowing one of your sons, me and him have both talked about and shared a lot of space and organizing, building and helping create healing space during COVID. So the next question I want to ask again is, what are some practices you have found useful towards your personal healing?
Wow. Well, I think sometimes we complicate things, and to Manu's point earlier, the idea that healing is very personal, it is very different. There are some practices that I think we have engaged in for decades, and a lot of that is through community conversation, through community planning. I could even say maybe centuries. I could just take it all the way back. The idea of collective organizing, the idea of collective goal making, the idea of raising a barn together, those are things that are very healing, in the sense that it reminds people that you are a part of something bigger than self. And it gives individuals purpose beyond self. And so to me, the healing in general has to really be multifaceted. The idea of collectively having community gardens creates great energy for people, great healing for people. The idea of setting up food banks, the idea of having after school programming, or how we'd had grandparents, reading stories to our children. The idea of just really working collectively in and of itself is healing. And I know, even as a single parent, raising my boys, no matter how tough, and I got some stories I could tell you all on how tough it got sometimes, but no matter how tough it got, I knew I had a village. And I think in terms of just the idea of isolation, because that's just one trauma, but just even the trauma of isolation, I think, can be addressed by being involved with more community projects, engagement, just activities in general. I mean, church for a long time has feel that sort of a void for many people. And it's that idea of belonging and finding meaning in something greater. So for me, to answer the question, it's really family starts at the core there, very invested in my boys, very invested in my nieces and nephews, very invested in my neighbors. I live in a condo, and I love all my neighbors. And so the circle just keeps radiating out, and as long as I can stay balanced, I can keep giving outward more and more and more. And then that, of course, brings back, it's very reciprocal. Then it brings back power and love and joy and purpose to for me as a individual individual person.
Dope. Thank you so much for that. Jennifer, I want to hit you with the same question, because I know even in the past year of 2021, you've become certified in I don't want to incorrectly say it, but your yoga practice, you can start it up. That, am I saying it right, Jennifer?
I'm still in yoga teacher training, so I'm not officially a certified yoga instructor until September, but I appreciate the affirmation and I received that. So thank you.
That leads me so what are some practices you found useful, especially in the last year alone, like I said, that has been helpful in your personal healing?
Yeah, so a lot of my healing has come through my connection to my ancestors. Again, engaging in this process of remembering, engaging in this process of memory building, really by intentionally using my breath and my body. So that looks like yoga, that looks like meditation for me on the daily. And I was led to that practice by speaking to my ancestors, by connecting with my ancestors, right? And so for me, it's also not about just yoga and meditation. For me, healing has really been about a deep process of excavation and integration. It has really involved me working through and unpacking my childhood trauma, unpacking how it shows up in the ways that I see myself, in the ways that I respond to others, how I show up in relationships, right? How I show up in the world. And so for me, it has, really been a deep and hard and painful reckoning in the past year and a half, with transitioning out of teaching out of physical school and just into organizing more full time. it was paramount for me that I really engage in a consistent practice of healing because, you know, my body was deteriorated. A lot of times, you know, teaching within an institution, even though I was at such an amazing school where I had so much autonomy and agency, just being within a physical school building feels like spiritual death. And so a lot of the times, you know, what I do to kind of remain balanced and just remain grounded is prayer. For me, prayer is like a daily practice. It is how I express gratitude. It is how I, you know, maintain connection to my ancestors. And so, you know, I don't think, like I said earlier, healing doesn't just happen when I'm on the yoga mat or when I'm meditating. I really think it mostly happens when I decide to do things differently, when I make an active choice to do better in the moment, right? To respond differently, to think differently about myself or about someone else. It is not about, you know, doing like meditation for 30 minutes. Cause like Dorian was saying, right? I think everyone has different methods, different processes, different spaces where they activate healing, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. And so I think a central part of the work that I'm trying to do is just create space for people to engage with healing at their own pace, and to meet folks where they're at with what we have. And so, yeah, I've just been really doing just that, just kind of taking things at my own pace, and using a lot of this work just to build resilience, and to build confidence.
True. Thank you for that. Manu, I want to hit you with the exact same question. And again, the question is, what are some practices you have found useful towards your own personal healing?
Sorry. So I think for me, like, well, sound. Someone's ringing a bell right now in the house, and sound is very healing. We have singing bowls and bells and different sonic things that help heal. But I think for me, designing my altars and activating my altars and stuff is very, very healing. As an artist, you know, just the creativity of building an altar to the way that it's beautiful to me, you know, is very inspiring and healing. And you know, I start my morning basically at my altar. It's like I look to, like, I get out of bed and it's right there, and I have little altars all around my house. So finding, for me at least, visual symbolic things to ground myself in that healing. Also, something that I've been really taking on this pandemic is learning how to apologize too. You know, I think that in itself is very, very healing, and there's different ways to learn how to communicate an apology, you know, in a very honest and truthful way. So I think those things right now, amongst everything that I try to do to heal every day, are what I'll take to say.
Wow. So about that apology part, right? So that I know is something I've dealt with, not only as a Black cis hetero person. So like, you know, being in this community, organizing community space, and like understanding when I need to like just not like respond, like I need to actually listen, so like I can, like, you know, help with healing as much as like humanly possible. And also sometimes just knowing how to say I'm sorry, like sincerely, respectfully, I'm sorry, is a lot harder in this organizing community than you would think. Yeah, so I'm gonna just leave that at that. But I want to throw this next question at Jennifer, just because again, going back to how long you've been in the shits, you know, in this organizing work. You've seen just as well as I've seen, you know what I'm saying, like whole organizations and, you know, whole like campaigns, you know, come and go and stuff like that. But I think we both have seen kind of how you were saying earlier, like how the energy in the organizing community can be really dangerous to the point where folks are like burnt out and never want to return. And I know that that's something that we all are trying to fix. Henceforth, we're having this conversation. So with that being said, my next question is, what is your vision for liberation, and how does that healing figure into that?
Word. Yeah, I think for me, a lot of liberation looks like us just returning to indigenous and African ways of living, and modes of being, that are within our bodies already. So, communal, tribal, nature-based kind of spiritual and emotional connection to the earth and to the natural world, and like law, really orienting towards life in all that we do and all that we say. No more work, no more war, no more time, no more money. And so just really, I think a vision of just self-determined, sustainable communities, and nations. I'm not saying nationalism, I'm saying nations. That's just much different than nationalism. Where we have everything we need where we are at, right? And so a lot of the things that, or a lot of the work that Let Us Breathe in like the breathing room space is rooted in ensuring that people know that abolition means presence, right? And so here at this space, we have everything we need, right? We have a garden, a farm in the back. We have an apothecary here. We have a full service kitchen, right? We have a grow room, so all the things that we're doing there is to kind of really put this vision for liberation and make it more tangible now. And so, I think for me, a lot of that liberation is rooted in healing. Like healing is the first part of that process, or the ongoing process of liberation. Kind of like I was explaining earlier, if we're in organizing meetings, or if we're in these spaces where we're trying to connect with folks, and people are not engaged in an active process of healing, we're going to repeat the same cycles. We're going to continue to hurt each other. We're going to continue to harm each other, in ways that are not sustainable or good for us. So the center of that vision is healing.
So, man, just being transparent, going off of what Jennifer said, I know I have my own healing situation with several organizations in the past couple of months. And so, yeah, that's been one of the many things, everything that Jennifer just said, that's been one of the many things that I've been like juggling, just because, again, being in this organizing community, once you get burned out, and I've seen it, folks tend to be very hesitant to return back to the space, just because this organizing work is extremely difficult, it's extremely rewarding, it's extremely empowering, because you're fighting to better a community. But I think I said it earlier, like this could be very unthankful work. And that's something that I think folks don't always think about. And so like, even with the new generation of like younger organizers in the community, they're like centering healing and centering, transformative restorative justice circles first, which I don't know about anybody else, but I haven't seen a successful circle in a minute, you know what I mean? And so it's just really dope that what's being taught by the young folks, or what they're learning from like organizing community like 5 years ago, it's like it's being used now, right? So to Dorian, I want to hit you with the same question. What is your vision for liberation, and how does healing figure into that? And I definitely want to get your perspective, especially coming from the artist perspective. Like, like I said, like your murals are extremely powerful. So and I know that takes a certain perspective to even like, do that, especially, being in this pandemic. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I could give you two perspectives, not only from the artist, but also just generationally. I mean, I was born in 1960, and so I've seen things. I've been around the block, and so what does liberation look like to me? It's about self-determination. I mean, I think Jennifer really summed it up, of course, but it really is about self-determination. It's about having the right to thrive. It's about having the right to express yourself. And I think that one of the reasons why we all or why there's so many people that suffer from burnout is because in a country like this, it's capitalist, it teaches and it honors the idea of the grind, get it, but they don't honor or teach or even promote the idea of regeneration. How do we plug back in? So sometimes I feel like that burnout, that grind, that hustle, that never stopping, never work, never vacationing, never taking time off to regenerate and to think and to smell the roses. I think that's one of the curses of capitalism that we all kind of suffer under. But then when you compound that and exacerbate that with the design of poverty, then it's a real downward spiral. So to me, it makes no sense that everybody doesn't have a place to live. It makes no sense to me that everybody doesn't have something to eat. I mean, I guess we could call that socialism, but I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. So to me, liberation means that people have their basics that allow them to move forward, that allow them to be creative, that allow them to imagine, that allow them to find the time and the inspiration to collaborate and to build with each other and to discover new. And so, wait, there was one more word I wrote down. Oh, yes, inspired spaces. To me, liberation means that we can live in inspired spaces. And that, of course, means a lot of different things to different people. But for me, as you can imagine, it would be a colorful space.
Wow. Yeah, I love the concept of inspired spaces. I mean, obviously that's something that the Breathing Room has been like working on like tirelessly. But yeah, I think that's something as far as the organizing community, as far as the Chicago creative community in its entirety. I think that's something that definitely sprouted up in the past months alone. So like if folks are familiar with Pull Up in the City, Black Rising, Good Kids Mad City, here in Chicago, like mind you, these are all youth organizers, Chicago Freedom School, and they literally have been like busting their ass, like creating gardens around the city and creating safe spaces. Just a couple of days ago, they had a Black party in the West Side Garden to bring more awareness around the gang database and how it needs to be dismantled because it holds over 75,000 Black and brown people's information that police, tend to like harm these people like on a daily, monthly basis. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just a lot of levels. So thank you for that. Which brings me to our last question, and I want to throw this in my news direction. What traditions or legacies inspire your care work?
Yeah, well, there are many, and we can start with definitely the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, for sure. For me, and as far as the house, in specifying queer and trans folks here, the work of Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson. Sorry, they started the Star House, which was for trans folks that were living on the street. Back in, I think it was like the late 60s or 70s. But then also currently there's a lot of groups, that inspire me. I mean, I got to Chicago about 4 years ago, and right away, came into contact with the Breathing Room and the Let Us Breathe Collective. That's definitely like a big inspiration for me, and also Cooperation for Liberation and all the work that they do. Molasses is another group in Chicago right now doing great work for Black trans people. The Aura House. There's a lot. There's thankfully a lot of inspirational groups here in Chicago doing a lot of really good work that inspire me.
Thank you so much for that. Jennifer, I'm gonna hit you with the same question. What traditions or legacies inspire your care work? And again, going back to what you were saying about your certification, like I said, we both share an experience that was, not the most positive experience that happened in this past year. And I know you getting into your certification, into that training, I know that was like, that kind of, like that kind of sparked that, right? And so, you speak to what you would want to, but yeah, what traditions or legacies inspire your care work?
Yeah, I think very similarly to what Mani was saying, the first folks that I thought of were the Young Lords and the Black Panthers, right? These are folks rooted in mutual aid, rooted in health, rooted in healing, rooted in the intersections of all those things, and really supporting people in accessing health, particularly Black folks. And so I think another kind of few people that come to mind are Grace and James Lee Boggs, Angela Davis, Audre Lorde, Toni Morrison. Those are all kind of just an orb and like a web of Black women and like femmes, who I think have really supported me in settling in my own identity, and settling into my own power, and finding and using my voice for the things that I do now. And so I'm grateful to them as always, and reading Beloved again right now.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, Dorian, I'm gonna ask you the same question, especially because again, like you said before, like you're an OG triple OG, but you're also an OG triple OG creatively in the Chicago community. Like muralists know who you are. You know what I'm saying? I was just at a visual for Adam Toledo. There was a mural that was created in his honor. And, folks were definitely bringing up your name, you know what I'm saying? Because you're in these streets. So, you are inspiration to a lot of muralists. Yeah, I mean, but like a lot of muralists now, you know what I'm saying? Like that are inspired, that are doing like a lot of like wheat pasting and a lot of like awareness in the city that they're inspired by your work. So, yeah, same question.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, no, I've been out here, for about 4 decades out here doing it and doing my thing and having a great time meeting the coolest people you'd ever want to meet in the art scene. Much of my early career was actually, my foundations really in the Black theater. And so when I think about traditions that I am born from, it would be the Black theater, the Black arts movement here in Chicago. I was blessed to be under the wings of people like Abena Joan Brown with the ETA Theater, Oscar Brown Jr., Gwendolyn Brooks, Margaret Burroughs, Phil Coran with the AACM. I mean, just around some amazing people in the 70s, 80s. The South Side was bustling with arts organizations. And I'm also from the tradition. I was taught through these trailblazers as I was growing up a young artist to also think about being an institution builder. And so those are part of the legacies that I come from. It's not about just programming, or it's not about a mural. It's about what can you build to contribute to community. And so that tradition continues to move me forward. And even to some degree, I'd have to say that tradition even pours over into the idea of mothering, from the African tradition of family and how we care for each other intergenerationally, how we extend ourselves beyond just our children into all our children, to our community. And so those are the kind of people that I grew up around, and those are the kind of aesthetics that I try to pass on to the young people around me, first being my 3 boys.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, thank the panel. Thank y'all so much for the energy y'all gave. I definitely have the privilege and blessing to say that I've worked with you all in this organizing community space, and they literally kick ass just as well as they sound in this meeting right now. So yeah, I'm gonna kick it back to Ellie. But yeah, thank you all so much for just letting us take up space. So.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I feel really watered and inspired by this conversation. I never know whether to ask people to clap or not on Zoom, so it's a little awkward, but like if everyone wants to just give a little silent clap, show our presenters some appreciation. So we have a chance to transition now into a little reflection activity now that we've heard from our panelists. Before we jump into this, I just want to say this whole conversation is reminding me so much of that Cornel West quote, "Justice is what love looks like in public." And I just want to shout out that, part of what feels important to us at the Public Newsroom is not just to sort of talk about these concepts with one another, but also to imagine, what does this look like in practice, to like take this away and take it home with us and we're really lucky to have a slate of panelists who like are really putting these concepts into practice. So for the next 20 minutes or so, we have this reflection that we hope can help you sort of think through, you know, what is my liberatory vision for the future, and how can healing figure into that for me personally, for the people that I'm accountable to, whoever that is, and who can I collaborate with, or who can I donate to, or who can I contribute to, or who can I support in order to get there. So feel free to get started on that now. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. All right, everyone, we will come back together now. Go ahead and wrap up your thoughts if you haven't already. And we'll just take the next 5 minutes or so to just, if anyone has anything that surprised them or resonated with them in doing that activity, both about your own answers and maybe others that you read on the mural or on the Jamboard, I mean. Would really love to hear just some reflections about how that felt and what you noticed. Anyone can go ahead and unmute themselves. I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
I can go, Ellie. This is Natalie. I have my camera off because I'm in a darker room. But I think for me, this exercise brings up how much we don't spend time imagining and sort of kind of being ready to fail, to take risks. I feel like abolition is kind of, you know, you have to have an answer for everything. And, you know, our imagination, I feel like, is stifled for that reason because we're so scared to make mistakes. So just thinking about like my vision and like what it would be like if, you know, if I was comfortable with risk and failure. I think this exercise would brought that up.
Yeah, I love that. That came up for me too. And I think, you know, fearing risk and failure can often come from a place of trauma. And so it feels very germane to our conversation about healing. Anyone else want to share any other thoughts?
I can go if anyone else didn't have a thought. Yeah, I think the questions for me kind of made me reflect on what I've been looking at as healing for myself as of lately. Again, like kind of figuring out what my position is in this organizing community. I think that's the one thing that they don't tell you when you kind of, you know, set foot in this community is there is no rule book. You know, this kind of, you know, you kind of have to not necessarily figure things out on your own, but like, again, I think this is one of the very few times where like even thinking about what does it look like trying to like heal yourself or even like work on yourself. Like this is one of the first times I feel like this conversation is really being censored. Like within the 5 years that I've been in this organizing community. And so, yeah, I think one of the things I got from these questions was just the concept of like shedding off dead weight. So kind of like really assessing like what relationships mean to you. Like, are these relationships like benefiting you? And they also just really made me think about what does it mean to be a person of good intentions. So like, you know, what does it mean to try to do for other people? Just because I feel like, especially with this pandemic, I feel like that's something that like folks have forgotten in the organizing community. They've forgotten how to be caring individuals. Like we're so busy, like, don't get me wrong, we're so busy. Like obviously abolition is the goal, is the all grand goal. But like sometimes I feel like we become abolitionists so much so where it's like we damn near don't give a damn about the other person's like feelings almost. And that's something I've never been able to agree with. And so yeah, it just really made me like reassess like as a person, you know what I'm saying? Like how am I presenting myself? You know, the days I'm tired, the days I don't really feel like looking at a screen or talking to anybody, you know, how can I present myself where like people know that they can trust and that know that I can like help or want to help or whatever. So yeah, that's my take.
You know, one of the things that came up for me too during this reflection that I don't think we've touched on tonight is that liberation also looks like liberated children. And I think that part of our process in terms of healing and moving forward and imagining something new is often really tied up in how we're raising our children and what we're teaching them about generosity, about kindness, about sharing, about just so many things. You guys know where I'm going with this. but those really, I think there's so much attention that really, really needs to be focused on the children and how we're raising them, and understanding that they're really where our healing lies.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got time for one last comment if anyone has one. Cool. If not, I can move us along. But yeah, I will just say, Dorian, like to piggyback off of your comment, just as a last thought, yeah, I think that's like absolutely right. And, you know, earlier I think it was Jennifer specifically who was like, a lot of this healing looks like working through childhood trauma. And I think that's what it looks like for a lot of us, you know, like that's where it starts. So I feel like it just gets back to the sort of cyclical nature of what we're talking about. But yeah, with that, I will wrap up for the evening. I have a couple announcements and reminders to make, but really appreciate everyone sharing their energy, their thoughts tonight, their insights, to all of our panelists, like, and to Isaiah for moderating. Thank you so much. It really is a pleasure to be witness to your conversation. And it's really a gift. And I hope that folks who are watching and maybe reading the blog after this sort of recognize that for the gift that it is. Before I move on to my announcements for City Bureau, I want to open it up to our panelists, because I really want to make sure that we can be reciprocal in that gift. So if there are any next steps that people can take to engage with your work, if there's any ways that we can support you or collaborate with you, now is a great time to make those announcements.
I was going to announce just an upcoming thing that I'm working on right now over at DuSable Museum, which is getting ready to reopen their doors in June, on Juneteenth. And I'm co-curating an exhibition with Chip Moody from the DuSable Museum, highlighting many of the mural panels that were created last summer during the social unrest. And an organization, Paint the City, has been really amazing about collecting and saving them. And so we're in the process now of installing an exhibition highlighting their work. So look forward to that in June.
And where can we learn more about that, Dorian? Would that just be the DuSable website?
Yes, it'll be on the DuSable website, and I'll also have it on my Instagram. So I'll put that in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. And I think Jennifer, you also unmuted to share.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so a couple different things. So with Let Us Breathe Collective, right now we have volunteer days on Tuesdays and Fridays from 11 to 6 in the garden and the farm. And also in the space. And I believe the volunteer form is linked under the takeaways, but I can also link it here in the chat. And so if you wanted to come spend time, come see the space, come see the work that we're doing there, I can give you a tour. We can chop it up. I can take you around the garden. I would really love more presence there. Yeah. And then for Defund CPD, we have kind of just come out of a period of hibernation. So once kind of like March came around, we're kind of now relaunching and activating the campaign in the summer months. So we're going to relaunch around Juneteenth and have a big pop-off community celebration at the breathing room space. So if you would like to sign up to volunteer, I also put the link in the takeaways, but I could put it here as well. And really, you know, the space is really meant to center like Black joy and like Black direction and like leadership. So for the folks who are signing up to volunteer, we mostly want like non-Black folks like holding the production for that day. So if that flows with like your identity and where you're at, then please sign up and come support Black folks in being able to just rest that day and just kick it that day. And then we also have, I believe, another mass training coming up on that day as well. More information coming out for that, but that's only open to Black folks. And then I think that's it for Defund CBD and Let Us Breathe. And then I think I put my personal IG on there as well if you wanted to connect with me there. Thanks.
Yeah, is there anything you want to shout out?
Yes. So I actually have not announced this yet. I probably should. I just haven't yet. But I actually am selling prints via my like social media. So like if you go on Instagram or my little link tree thingy, there's like certain prints. So like prints from Defund CPD, the prints actually from the City Bureau exhibition that I did years ago. Yeah, so each print is like specific to like what's been going on in the city. And if you go and buy one of the prints, the funds will go to help get funds for the Juneteenth barbecue that Jennifer's talking about, and also goes to Black Rising in her Chicago. Oh, I'm sorry, I just like, yeah, and also my GoFundMe, my GoFundMe is also there. That's kind of just helping me with like funds for like my medical bills and stuff after I got like arrested and whatnot. So yeah, if folks want to like support in that way, that would be cool. I would definitely suggest to like buy a print. Once again, that's helping Black Rising in her Chicago. Once again, those are two specific youth-led organizations that do a lot of mutual aid like throughout the entire city. And also, what's today? Thursday, so Saturday, Nita's Love Train is doing her Love March. It's going to be on 63rd Ashland, Inglewood. It's to uplift all of the Black and brown youth that have been murdered by the police since 2020. And so, yeah, this is something that's being led by particularly Black and brown women. So if folks want to slide, you can definitely hit me up. I can point you in the right direction. And yeah, I think that's all I
got. Awesome. Thank you guys so much again for participating in this panel, and also for like sharing how we can continue to connect with you and your work.